Well, welcome to Splash. How many guys have been here before? Okay, so the rest of you put your hands up now. How many people have been new? First time. Awesome. Wow, that's great. That's over half the room, so I'm super, super excited. How did you hear about us? Let me ask you, start here, right here, front row. Yeah.
At the York show.
At the York show? Okay. Who else? Yeah. Facebook. Okay. Anybody else? Facebook or the show? That type of radio commercials? Okay. All right. Yep. Becky and I did those a while ago. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Good. Well, my name is Mark. If you ever get an email from me, it says Mark the Pond Guy. If you hear me answer the phone, it's, hey, it's Mark the Pond Guy. I've been doing this for about 30 years. My wife, Becky, is up here. She's been playing in the mud with us for, I don't know, 14 years? Something like that. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, my daughter's back there in the back. Campbell waved to everybody. So Campbell's 14, and she's been in the business now for, what, 3 years, right? She's one of the hardest workers on here on a Saturday morning. So good morning, guys. Come on in. We're just getting started. So I just wanted to start off saying 30 years ago, I started playing in the mud for a living. I went to school for landscape architecture. Didn't learn anything really about ponds or anything really at school. But we started digging ponds for a living and learning as we were doing it. And so today, Splash Supply Company is the retail side of our business. We also have a wholesale side where we sell all of our products to other contractors. I do a lot of consulting and helping other contractors design, build, and sell. We sell up and down the East Coast, out to the Hamptons, up in New York State, down to Washington, D.C., pretty much everywhere. If you everybody got a booklet? If anybody didn't get a booklet, let me know. But there's a little bit of history in there about us. But I've had the fortunate privilege of being able to travel around the world to build a few waterfalls in Mexico, Ireland, Omaha, Epcot Center, just all over the place. But we've had most of our fun right around here in York County. We build acre-sized lakes. We build tiny little fountains. My goal today and my goal in this business is actually just to share all the dumb things that we did over the years. So that way when you're doing it yourselves or having someone do it for you, you don't make the same mistakes that we did. Our goal is to create low maintenance, happy, healthy fish, crystal clear water when it comes to relaxing in your backyard. So that's our goal today. I wanted to start off today and just start talking about a little bit about ponds in general. The basic ecosystem pond that you see out in our back garden is a closed system, meaning that you dig a hole, put a rubber liner in it, you fill it up with water, and we're recirculating that water. We also deal with acre-sized farm ponds where you have a stream flowing into it and then a stream going out of it. We do have a seminar back in May, I think, sometime, where we're going to be addressing that type of a pond. Because that type of pond is a different animal than the closed system ponds. Our closed system ponds, we can control everything. And that's kind of our goal out here is to control everything because we want nature to take care of that, to control it. We're using nature to do that. So we have that system closed. We're recirculating that. We basically want to get debris out, filter the fish waste, and keep the fish happy, crystal clear water, happy, healthy fish, and not a lot of work. And so that's our goal throughout the whole system. So let me introduce you to the book. This is going to be our guideline right here. This poster that we have up here, and it's also on page 4 and 5 in the book, right at the very beginning, that way. So, how many of you guys have a pond now? Okay, and the rest of you guys are thinking about building ponds or waterfall that way. So, our ecosystem pond that you see on here is basically 30 years worth of doing it wrong and improving it little by little by little. So back 30 years ago when I first started building ponds, my mom's in here somewhere. Is my mom in here? Oh, she went back upstairs. So my mom's garden was my playground. She allowed me to dig and play around with some ponds. So the very first ponds that we built were in her backyard. So she's had many evolutions of ponds. I was hoping she was here today. I would embarrass her with some stories, but But at any rate, when we first started building ponds, we would put the pump on the very, very bottom of the ponds. And obviously what would happen is all the debris that's getting into the pond would go down and clog that pump. You'd have to put on your scuba gear, go down, unclog the pump. the debris would just build up on the bottom of the pond. You'd have to drain the ponds down all the time, and it's just a high maintenance nightmare. With all of that extra debris in there, well, guess what happens? It starts to break down. It starts to emit poisonous gases into the water, so your fish aren't happy. The water is never crystal clear. It's brown, it's murky, it's green, it's just a mess. So the initial ponds back 30 years ago were very, very high maintenance and not very pretty to look at. Our rock work was gorgeous. We just had a natural, our pond building team, which I started it, but physically today I don't build anymore. But the ponds were beautiful to look at, but the water quality was just terrible. They were just high maintenance nightmares. So a lot of those ponds had to get changed right away and upgraded on filter systems, or they just got filled in because people got frustrated. And so it became my life mission to make sure that people can realize, hey, now we can have crystal clear water, happy, healthy fish, and not a lot of work. So the very first thing that we do, and what I tell people today is 90% of filtering the pond is physical filtration. So if you build a pond, you dig a hole, and you fill it with water, it's a magnet for debris. So you're going to get the corn cobs from across the farmer's field coming into it. You're going to get the leaves from the oak tree. You're going to get, the pollen over here. You're going to get fish waste. You're going to get all of these leaves, twigs, sticks. All that kind of debris is going to get into the pond, regardless. So how do we get it out? Well, the old-fashioned way was to, dive down to the bottom pond, unclog your pump, get it off the bottom of the pond. Now, all of a sudden, we're in the mid-90s, so 93, 94, the skimmer came around. And just like a swimming pool skimmer, it's constantly skimming the surface of the water. So you get a leaf over here, you get a twig over here, you get some solids into fish waste. The water is getting pulled constantly into the skimmer. And so our pump is sitting on the bottom of the skimmer. So there's no external, someone mentioned an external pumping systems, things like that. Our systems here are not only designed to work great, we want them to be beautiful too. So we don't want to have the pressure filters here and the pumps outside that way. We can make them more beautiful, and by making them more beautiful, they work better too. So at any rate, so we pull the pump off the bottom of the pond, put it into the skimmer, and now all of a sudden all of this debris, before it has a chance to drop to the bottom of the pond, all of this debris gets sucked over into the skimmer. And so our basket in here collects all of that debris. Does that make sense? Just like a swimming pool. And the very initial skimming type filters were manufactured by Aquascape. You'll see around the store the Aquascape brand. Greg Whitstock of Aquascape kind of, in his initial starting up of the company, saw the swimming pool skimmers and said, you know what, I can make that for a pond. I just need to make it bigger. So he took a garbage can and took a faceplate from a swimming pool type skimmer, and he made the initial skimmer. So today, I do have a skimmer over here I'll show you in just a second, and we have two other skimmers over here. And if you're interested in skimmers, that's why we have them set up here. All of our ponds outside have skimmers. Don't hesitate. Lift up the lids of those skimmers, look down into it, and that type of thing. But that right there is the #1 reason why our business is as popular, why there's so many people in the room today, because you've seen a pond with a skimmer and said, wow, I want that. And that. But prior to skimmers, they were a mess. So the skimmer is 90% of filtering the pond. If a skimmer is sized properly, and so we have 3 different size skimmers here, and this is our small skimmer. So our small skimmer, Econo skimmer, has a fake rock, or has a black plastic lid on it. Once you start getting up to the bigger skimmers, we have these plastic fake rocks on them. This guy here has a mesh net as your debris basket. The next size skimmer up has a medium basket, and then the big skimmer has a big basket. So choose your basket size based on how much debris is around your pond. So my personal pond has black walnut tree over here, cherry tree over there, ash tree over here. What else is over there? There's a dogwood tree over here. It's just so many big trees around there. So this basket right here has a great little handle on it. So you can see, I can go weeks, months without emptying the skimmer basket. But once the skimmer basket gets full, it's time to lift it up and empty it. If I put a small basket on my pond, it'd be a lot more work for me because I would have to empty it whenever this fills up. So if I've got a lot of debris, I want to go as big as my budget allows on the skimmer. The other part of choosing your skimmer size is making sure that, that it's big enough to handle the debris, but also big enough to handle the pump flow through it. So if I have a leaf over here, this pump is pulling that leaf into the basket. So I want to size that pump big enough that it's powerful to pull this leaf into that basket before that leaf drops to the bottom of the pond. So yeah, go ahead.
Do you only, like, you have the large skimmers, so if it gets to a point where your pond is so large, you have multiple skimmers?
Yeah, great question. So she's thinking about doing a 100 by 100 pond, right? Is that what it is? So my personal pond is 30 by 40. This is the skimmer that I have, that big basket. That's the skimmer I have. That's about the biggest pond that I can use this skimmer on. If we have a pond that's bigger than that, and we do them all the time, we will either custom make a skimmer or we'll put multiple skimmers on. Most of the time as a designer, my personal preference is I don't want to see multiple skimmers. I'll put one skimmer on and then we'll start to customize. Anybody ever been up to the Leg Up Farm? So a few people have been up to Leg Up Farm. So it's a great place up here in Mount Wolf where they work with a lot of disabled kids. They work with horses, things like that. A number of years ago, they called me in and said, hey, Mark, we're building on, this is fantastic. Louis Castriotti's vision, he wrote a book. So if anybody wants to be inspired, read that book. But he said, we want to build a fishing pond out back where the kids can walk out on a pier and go fishing. And I sat in a room and there was architects and builders and all kinds of visionaries in there. And I said, you're all crazy. I said, there's not a kid in the world that wants to go out and put a hook in these fish's mouths. You want to pet these fish. And so they all looked at me like I had three heads. Like, what are you talking about? We don't pet fish. I ended up getting in my way. We ended up, instead of building a dock that they can go out, we built a half-acre pond that has a handicap entrance ramp. It is just amazing. To this day, I just love stopping by up there and just seeing them interact with that. Way better than putting a hook in a mouth, right? So, side story, but that pond has skimming filtration. If we were to put skimmers on there, we would have lined up 100 skimmers across the edge. It would have been pretty ugly. So we actually went and custom built a skimmer. So just the way this skimmer is built, we dug a pit, put some pumps in the bottom of the pit, and brought it up so that way the pumps are acting as a skimmer. Instead of having a skimmer basket, their maintenance crews up there just take a leaf rake to the top of the surface of the water, probably once a month, maybe once every 3 months. So again, very, very low maintenance, but even a pond like that can be skimmed. So so depending on the size you go, but 30 by 40 on the big one, probably 20 by 20 on the medium one, and then the 10 by 10 on the small one. Is the general rule of thumb, through there. So that's skimming filtration. Does that make sense? Good. Okay. So the idea, just to summarize, is that we want to have a pump powerful enough to pull debris from every corner of the pond, and we want to have a basket big enough to handle all of the debris that's around it. So if you have got a pond out there, full sun, you got one tree, 500 feet away, there's not a lot of debris around it, well, you could go smaller, on the skimmer basket if you wanted to. But if it's a big pond, you need to have a big pump, and so that dictates the size of the skimmer as well. So that's the skimmer. On this particular skimmer, the plumbing is going to come out the side, so it's underground. This gets dug in the pond, so you don't see it. If you walk through our garden out back here, you'll see that the skimmers are kind of hidden. You have to look for them. But it's underground. The plumbing comes out underground. So again, back to your example of above ground filters and above ground pumping systems. This particular skimmer here and all of our skimmers, the plumbing is underground. The great advantage of that is, number one, you don't see any of the plumbing because who wants to see it? Number two, I can actually leave all of these ponds running all winter long because those pipes are underground. The water's flowing fast enough through there. We do have some rules about pump sizes and pipe sizes to make sure that it works well in the wintertime. But for the most part, all of our ponds out here stay running just like they are all winter long because that plumbing is running underground. So this skimmer system allows us to do that as well. So does that make sense? Cool. All right. So easy peasy. That's 90% of the battle right there. So we want to take a break for about a half hour, and no, kidding. So skimming filtration. So our skimmer's over here on the side of the pond. If you have an existing pond and it has a rubber liner on it, who asked the question about existing pond? Yeah, they're in the back row there. I can barely see you, like the sun is shining. Yeah, there you go. But right, exactly. But if you have a rubber liner on the pond, it's very, very easy to attach the skimmer to the rubber liner. If you have a rigid plastic liner, like a preformed tub, you'd have to change that out to a rubber liner. But let me bring that skimmer back up here, and I'll take a couple seconds and show that real quick. All right. And all of our skimmers are pretty much very similar. They're just different sizes. So this is the faceplate that goes on the front of the skimmer. So if I had an existing pond, I would end up digging a hole right next to the pond. There we go. All right, so here's my pond over here. You know, the fish are swimming around, and my pump is sitting down here in the pond now. If I wanted to put a skimmer on my pond, which is a fantastic idea, I would dig a hole right next to the pond, sink it down in. Water level in the pond is basically going to be right around here. So right as slightly above this top screw, through here. So that's going to be water level in the pond. So that kind of gives you an idea how deep to set that, in the ground. Let's pretend this is rubber liner. And when I'm getting ready to attach it to here, I just stretch it out across there. Make sure there's no wrinkles. Make sure there's no tears, right? But make sure there's no wrinkles. Make sure it's nice and clean. And then I'm going to take my faceplate. Oops. And I'm going to take this door off so we can talk about this. Then I'm going to take my faceplate and I'm going to lay my faceplate across the front of it like this. With your skimmer, you do get a bag of screws. So those screws are going to go in through these holes and into the skimmer itself. And you're just going to dry fit everything. So get everything dry fitted. And then you're going to pull the faceplate off with the liner attached to the faceplate just with those screws. And then you're going to take a bead of fish-safe black silicone that comes with your skimmer. And you're just going to put this bead of silicone around here just like that. You don't need to go across the top because remember our water level's not that high. But you just go across there and across there. And now you're going to bring this back up. And we already dry fit this once, so we know everything's all in alignment. And just like putting lug nuts on a tire of a car, you just slowly go around and just tighten all the screws back up. When you do that, one or two of those screws might pop out, just laying down there in the liner. You just bring those up and put those in. After you have that all sealed up, give it about an hour or so for that silicone to dry. And then just take a little knife and just cut out the rubber liner, and boom, there you go. It's pretty intimidating when you're taking a good piece of liner and you're cutting a hole in it, putting screws in it, but it's not a terrible thing. It's pretty easy. Just take it step by step. Biggest thing is just no wrinkles and make sure it's clean. Simple? Make sense? Okay. All right. And I will tell you another thing on this without getting too much detail. Yes, go ahead. Great question. So talking about where to site the skimmer. As far away from as possible from the waterfall. So however you can get it there, as far as possible away from the waterfall. We want the waterfall to be pushing debris towards the skimmer, and we want the skimmer to be pulling debris in. So if we had the skimmer here and the waterfall right here, like right next to each other, we're going to have a huge dead area in the pond. So if we have good circulation, as far away from the waterfall as possible. Make sense? Good. All right. Awesome. Okay. So you'll see all of our skimmers have these doors on them. On our larger skimmers, this door actually acts as a maintenance tool. We can shut the door and draw the water level down in the skimmer, and then we can get access to all the parts and everything in a dry skimmer. The other role of the door is that it actually, without the door, we're going to be sucking water, about 6 inches of water coming in. With the door floats, so we're only sucking in about an inch of water. So we have 5,000 gallons of water going over that 1 inch. It's moving a lot faster than if it was going in 6 inches. So the door helps to pull debris from all the corners of the pond. So the doors help to increase the efficiency. All right. The other thing I point out, all of our skimmers come with everything that you need. It's not running to buy this obscure part here and this obscure part here. Everything comes in the box. Great instruction manuals come in the box. Tons of videos online. And the other cool thing about Splash is most of the time, if you're buying a pond kit from us, we're actually delivering it out to you and unpacking the boxes with you. So just keep that in mind. You're not alone. This is not Amazon where you buy it and you're on your own. That's why we're here, is to help you guys get over those learning curves and that type of thing. So let us know. Yeah.
So it's, I guess, sort of better to have your pond already dug out and stuff, and then get that, or?
Great question. Do not stick your shovel in the ground until after you buy your pond kit. So, and most people ignore that, and they come to me after they've already dug their hole. It's like, oh no, we got to, because there's certain steps. And this is a great question. So when we build a pond, our crews, or when I'm helping homeowners build a pond, the very first thing that we do after we sketch out the pond, where it's going to go, and decide all that, the size and things like that, very first thing I do when I come out is we'll go ahead and get the skimmer out of the box, and we'll go ahead and place it on the ground, on the grass, you know, where the skimmer is going to go, and then we'll lay out the plumbing, and then we'll lay out the biofalls, and then we'll step back and look at it. And we'll go to the kitchen window, and this is going to your question about siting, where to site the pond. We'll go to that kitchen window, and we'll look out, and we'll make sure that where the biofalls is, yep, I can see it from the kitchen window. And then we walk over to the patio. Yep, I can see it from the patio. And oh yeah, I want to see it from, I want to do a little sitting area over here. I can see it from this area through here. It's a great prelude. Let me jump into siting. I'll kind of mix things up a little bit. So that's the number one rule. When I go to someone's house, I don't know where to put the pond. The very first thing I do is I go to the kitchen window. Now, this doesn't work in my house, and it doesn't work in everybody's house, but in a lot of situations, it's where can I get the most enjoyment from it inside the house? My house, outside my master bedroom window, is my main waterfall. So when I go to sleep at night, I have that waterfall crashing down. Even if it's 10 degrees out, we've got 17 blankets up, but that window's open so I can hear my waterfall. But a lot of times the kitchen window is the place to go, or the living room window. But you just want to enjoy it. You know, if you have a system like this, you can leave it run. You know, if it's raining out, if it's cold out, it's the middle of winter, middle of summer, you know, you want us to be able to enjoy it. So siting that waterfall is the first thing. The second thing, now we go outside, and where do we site the pond itself? Well, let's not put it in that back corner. I had a call this week from a customer. I've got this wet spot way in that back corner, you know, underneath a tree. I want to build a pond there. And it's like, no, you do not want to build a pond there. You know, the first thing is it's way back there. You're never going to enjoy it. And the second thing is, you know, it's already groundwater and it's going to be a nightmare. We want to have it up close to the house where we can control everything. But the main point here is don't put it way back there where you're not going to enjoy it. Put it right up next to the patio. So in the summertime, I've got a couch right next to my pond on the one side. So we're sitting there after dinner, having a glass of wine, feeding the fish. You know, so I'm sitting there eating an orange or something like that, and I'm tearing off a piece of orange and I'm just throwing it right to the fish. You know, so the fish are just right there. They're a part of the ecosystem. The evening relaxation. The other patio I have on the other side, big fire pit with some Adirondack chairs around it, and the pond is like right in the middle of that. The pond needs to be the center of attention, you know, out there. If it's way back there in the corner, you're not going to enjoy it. So siting the pond is important. Site the waterfall where you can see it from as many different angles as possible, and put the pond itself right up next to the patio. And then what happens if that waterfall is over there and my pond is over here? Well, that's a stream. You know, so now all of a sudden we're doing multiple waterfalls and connecting the two. Streams are an relatively inexpensive way to really add to the enjoyment of the pond and make the pond a more dynamic feature. So does that make sense about siting? Yeah. Did you have any other questions about that, or kind of?
Oh yeah, but that's okay.
Yeah. Good. All right. Good. Yeah. Well, this is just designed to kind of get you thinking, you know, about that. And every situation is unique. So cool. All right. So, so I don't recommend digging. Your question was about digging first. We have a very specific way that we go about digging the pond. So when I come out, we unpack the boxes. We put the skimmer here, the biofalls there, and then we get the pipe that comes in your kit, and we connect the two. In some of the kits, it's 25 feet of pipe, and some of the kits, it's 50 feet of pipe. But we want to stretch that out. Remember we said, you know, we're going to put the skimmer on this side. We're going to put the biofalls way over here on this side. And now we're going to put the pipe on the ground. And the reason we do that before we dig is because you only have 50 feet of pipe. And how terrible would it be if you put the skimmer 52 feet away from the biofalls? You know, it's like, you know. Whereas the skimmer really doesn't matter if we shift it over 1.5 feet, 2 feet to make that up. So put the skimmer in, connect the pipe, and then put the biofalls in, you know, on the other side. So make sure you're using the material that's in the kit as efficiently as possible. So that's the very first thing that happens when we lay it out. The second thing is dig it in the ground. So dig your skimmer in the ground. This is before you dig the pond. Dig your skimmer in the ground. if our crews are doing it, we can actually do an 8 by 11 pond with our crew in one day. I haven't met a homeowner yet that can do that in one day. We've got 7 guys that have been doing this for 30 years. Most homeowners take a few weekends, a few months, a few years. When you get to that point, call me. I'll help you get it done so you guys can have an enjoyable Thanksgiving. But the skimmer's the very first thing that goes in the ground. Every time you go out to it, next Saturday, hey, we go out, the skimmer's already set, so you know what your water level is. So when you go to start to dig this section of the pond, you know what your water level is. It's all set. It's not going to change. And then you go dig the next section the next weekend, your water level's all set. So put your skimmer in the ground first, then trench your pipe lightly around the edge of the pond. Just put your pipe in the ground, 6 inches. So the pipe goes in the ground 6 inches, and then your biofalls is sitting over here. And your biofalls that we didn't talk about yet, but this is your biological filter. This gets buried in the ground. So this is going to be my waterfall coming out of the water. All of the dirt that we excavate from the pond gets used up around the biofalls. So if you don't have your biofalls in place, well, guess what? You got to move dirt 2 or 3 times now. So go ahead, put your biofalls in. The pipe's already connected. Your plumbing's already done. And so that way, every single shovelful of dirt gets thrown up here, and now all of a sudden we're creating the berm for the waterfall. So it's a very efficient way to do it. Yes? Yeah.
Where do you have your pump at?
So the pump is in the bottom of the skimmer.
Oh, okay.
Yep, the pump is in the bottom of the skimmer, and then the biofalls is sitting on the other side. So there's nothing really, and I'm going to go through the biofalls here in a second, but there's no pump in the biofalls itself, so it's just one pump in through here. Yep, absolutely.
Is the skimmer below the biofilter?
So yes, exactly. So the skimmer, you can see the skimmer is right at water level in the pond itself, and then the biofalls is above water level. So if you wanted to site this and put this 10 feet high, you could have a 10-foot high waterfall. Or if you want to put it 6 inches, you can put it 6 inches above, so you have a 6-inch waterfall. If you have a 100 by a 100 pond, that's a pretty big pond, you could probably have a 7 or 8 foot high waterfall, and it would still look pretty natural. If you put a 7-foot high waterfall on a 5 by 5 pond, it's gonna not look natural. Trying to be kind, right? But it's not gonna look good. You don't want to have a volcano in the backyard. And so by doing this method of taking the excavated dirt from the pond and flipping that up to create the berm for the waterfall, it not only is efficient in digging, it's also balancing the aesthetic. So a big pond is going to be a bigger pile of dirt. A smaller pond is going to be a smaller pile of dirt. So a smaller pile of dirt means smaller waterfall. So the size of the waterfall is naturally sized to the size of the pond. Does that make sense? So, yep. So we're not hauling dirt in, and we're not hauling dirt out most of the time. But a lot of times on hills, guess what? We got to haul dirt away, because we got to build retaining walls. Sometimes it's a cut and fill situation, and we'll take a look at your pictures and your grades and things like that later. But sometimes it's not a balanced fill situation where we have to either haul dirt in or haul dirt out when we have some hills. My mom's back there. On her particular one, her yard sloped away like this, and the patio's here and the house is up here. But remember my rule: we want the waterfall to face the house and to face the kitchen. I mean, we trucked in 20 truckloads of dirt to try to change this grade, a little bit that way. So that way the waterfall could, turn around and face the house. So there's times when we have to bring dirt in. We're building everybody knows the new Memorial Hospital being built over here, so it's going to open in August. Last September 1st, we were told that was our start date to build a huge pond, 100-foot pond by 20 feet, right outside the emergency room. It's going to be super, super cool. I'm super excited about it. We're bringing dirt in for that. Like, we have to bring in probably 30 truckloads of dirt to create the bed in this garden. So sometimes you have to bring dirt in. Sometimes you have to haul dirt out. And I don't know whether anybody read about that whole process there. They took 30 feet of dirt off the top of that mountain to put the hospital in. Yeah, well, below 30 feet of dirt is solid bedrock. Yeah, guess where my pond is going? Solid bedrock. So we have to chisel all that rock out, and then we got to bring in 30. So every situation is going to be a little bit different, but the idea normally is to balance those sites out. So does that make sense on siting and kind of the general procedure that way? Cool. Okay. Any other questions? Any special situations on site? Yeah.
Property I'm at, we're gonna probably have to build up the pond instead of dig down.
Yes. Okay.
Does that create any issues?
So, yeah, so the question was, I really can't dig into the ground to build a pond for whatever reason it is. You know, I want to build it up. So if you notice here, our indoor ponds, you know, we didn't feel like digging through the concrete floor, you know, so we build it up. If we go to a garden show, we'll build up. You know, we don't break through this concrete floor. So it can be done. The key is to make sure that you have to do some kind of retaining wall, you know, around the outside, and then have enough of a buffer of soil or something like that between the edge of the pond and the front of the retaining wall, so that way you don't have freeze-thaw issues with the edge of the pond. So does that make sense?
We also have.
Okay, and then you have a hill behind it. Yeah, yeah. So yep, and that's another situation where you're building a retaining wall, and then the pond is in here, and then you have your waterfall, you know, kind of going up that way. So between this waterfall and the edge of the pond here, just make sure that you have enough soil, you know, backfilled in there to kind of create that condition where it's level, you know, around there. Yeah, I mean, water will seek its own level, you know, so you have to make sure, you know, especially on hillside excavations, that it's perfectly level, you know, and that wall is going to hold everything, you know, through there. So, make sense? Good. Okay. Any other questions about siting a pond or?
Trees that you need to avoid putting your pond under?
Okay, great question. So the question was, you know, I've got a beautiful spot, but, you know, there's so many different trees through there. Are there any specific trees that I don't want to build a pond near? And, you know, we've built ponds around all kinds of trees. Sycamore trees are going to be very, very dirty, you know, trees with really powerful root systems. Silver maples, very fast growing, the root systems. Most of our pond construction is very flexible because we're using a flexible rubber liner. So I'm not super concerned about roots damaging, you know, the pond that way. I will mention a birch. So if everybody have ever seen a river birch, they love water. I am convinced after 30 years of doing this and seeing that the birch can actually somehow, they hear or they sense water moving. If there's a rubber liner here and there's water on this side of it, I have seen birch trees from 20 feet away send a root over, go up over top, and it's dry over here. There's no water that's pulling them that way, and go up over top of the liner and start drinking from that pond. I've seen it. Yeah, and I've seen it more than once. So I'm convinced that they can sense it somehow.
But there's no toxicity with leaves or, like, I know I had moonflowers
Okay.
and my fish died because I let the moonflower vine
A moonflower. Okay.
stay
Okay.
in the pond.
Yeah, in my experience, I've heard that story. In my experience, the amount of plants and the level of toxicity that's associated with koi is very, very limited. So I don't have a big list of plants like that. You know, our biggest thing is just, you know, making sure that the skimmer is able to handle whatever debris happens. Hemlocks are terrible around a pond, just because I love hemlocks, it's my favorite tree, but just because the needles are so tiny, they're going to get through. They're going to go through these little holes in through here, and then the next part of the skimmer filter on these bigger skimmers is a double filter system. They have these filter mats in through here, so these are going to catch those needles. So it's going to do its job, but if it's a big hemlock or a lot of hemlocks, you're going to be cleaning this quite often. You know, so that's the issue. So you can do it, but just keep it in mind. Go with a bigger skimmer. Yeah.
Okay, so I have a hemlock, and I have a river birch, and I have a slope. And I also have a honey locust,
Okay.
which if I don't mow regularly under there, the roots come
Yeah,
up
you're right.
a forest.
Yeah.
Is that going to be an issue with siting?
Yeah, so everything that we mentioned about, you know, could go wrong with your pond installation, she has them all, right? But no, the real question is just making sure that you're sizing that skimmer properly to handle all that debris that's going to be getting in there. You know, I would definitely, if you have, you know, those needles that you're going to worry about in this tree and that tree, make sure you have that. And then on the river birch, it's just a maintenance thing. So once a year, just go in and know that these roots are going to be dun, 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 you know, marching in. Just say, hey, we're going to stop that, you know, just once a year, and just do some preventive maintenance, just chopping those roots. You're not going to hurt the tree by trimming those small roots if they start to get close that way.
Honey locust, because that's a big part of the art.
Yeah, so the locust sending up suckers and things like that. Underneath our rubber liner in the pond is a felt underlayment. It's a non-woven geotextile, super heavy duty fabric. When I teach classes where we're actually down and dirty, digging the pond, I'll take a screwdriver, and because people are like, oh, I want to use newspaper as padding, or I want to use sand as padding underneath there, or old carpet. Those are things. And I'll take a screwdriver and just jam it right through, all of those things. Using our underlayment, try to jam that screwdriver through. You can't. It's really, really tough stuff. So we want to make sure that we're protecting that rubber liner from sharp rocks and also from sucker root growth. So if we have the underlayment there and then the rubber liner and then all the rock and gravel on top like that, there's so much pressure there, the sucker growth from the tree is going to be like, no, I don't want to go up here. It's too much work. I can send my energies over here. So I'm not super concerned about that. A silver maple, sometimes, it starts, the roots growing this way and, boom, the elbow goes up. You've seen it push up sidewalks before and things like that. So those type of trees, I'm like, don't plant it there. If it's there, we'll trim it out and go around that area working with the tree. So make sense? Cool. All right. Well, let's keep moving. I can sit here and talk for about 6 hours, but nobody wants to stand here for that. So, all right. So we talked about skimming filtration. We talked about siting the pond, siting the waterfall on the pond itself, and we talked about taking the dirt from the pond and flipping it up to create the berm for the waterfall. What we didn't talk about was steps in the pond. I've seen ponds out there that for some reason, there was a Better Homes and Gardens article out in the 1970s that said dig this bowl shape, for your pond. It'll be fantastic. Well, anybody have a bowl-shaped pond? Nobody in here, good. Can you imagine how to get in and out of a bowl-shaped pond? No, not good. If you take the old white athletic socks, turn them inside out, they actually grip slimy liner a little bit better than bare feet. 30 years. I probably learned that in year 22 or something, but I probably put the memory of that day out of my head. So you can see we have steps in the pond. So when we dig the pond, normally what I'd say dig the whole pond down to 8 or 10 inches deep, the whole pond. So we painted the outline of the pond, and now we dig that whole thing down to about 8 or 10 inches deep. And that's our first shelf. So the reason for that first shelf, number one, is safety. So, when my kids were little, it was important to me that they didn't just fall right in, right? So they were able to, it was a big deal. I have a picture in my office at home of my son. He's wearing a red shirt, and he's standing on the first shelf in the pond for the very first time. This is probably his 5th birthday, maybe? I forget. But he's got 4 of his buddies, and they're all standing on that first shelf, and he's standing there like, yeah, I stand in this thing all the time. No one knew that it was his very first time standing at the first shelf. But I say that to say that first shelf is there for safety, that it's like a staircase to get in and out of the pond. If you walk around all of our ponds out here, you'll see that first shelf. The other thing on that first shelf, 6 or 8 inches deep of water is perfect for a lot of our marginals. So if you see some of the plants that we have in here, we're overwintering in season, we'll have about 150 different varieties of pond plants. Most of those are going to be marginal plants that love 6 or 8 inches of water. So we'll jump into the role that plants play at the end here, but having a shelf in your pond to grow these marginal plants makes it look awesome and does wonders for the filtration. So that first shelf, safety, and also for plants, okay? The second shelf, now all of a sudden we're down here at the second shelf, is a little bit deeper. So it's 16 to 20 inches shelf. So remember we dug that first shelf, 10 inches, let's say. Now we got this next shelf, another 10 inches, so we're down around 20 inches. Plant pockets for lilies. So this is a shelf that lilies are going to love. If you've read that same Better Homes and Gardens article, it said raise and lower your lilies all the time. Forget that. Who wants to look at potted lilies in their crystal clear water? You want to plant them down in. So if everybody can see that detail through there, when we're digging that second shelf, we're actually doing a little indentation in the dirt, and then we're pushing the underlayment down on top, down in that hole, and then we're pushing the rubber liner down there. And then when you buy your lily comes with a little bit of soil, and so that goes down in that plant pocket. If you've ever seen a pond where the plants have just totally taken over, it's probably because they didn't do plant pockets; they just sat it right on the surface. Doing plant pockets, you can now easier maintenance to keep that plant contained on that one shelf. Yeah.
What kind of material is the underlayment?
So the underlayment technically is called a non-woven geotextile. So it's a black fabric. Do we have a piece of it floating around here somewhere? It's a black fabric. Yeah, probably have a piece somewhere. We'll find it. But we have different thicknesses of it. So we have a regular grade, and then we have a grade that's probably 3 times as thick. We call it a rock pad. So if you see some of our huge rocks out here, we're putting underlayment, liner, and then another piece of underlayment, and then the rock. So our rubber liner is the heart of our system. So we don't want that to be damaged. It comes with our liner comes with a lifetime warranty from the manufacturer. But the worst thing that happens is installer blight, installer error, because we're dropping a huge heavy rock on it, or we didn't put underlayment underneath, and yeah, there we go. Just pass it around, Jenny. Yeah. A sharp rock from down here, gets in there. So this stuff here is yep, exactly. Yep. So that's our regular weight underlayment, through there.
Regular weight one?
Yes, that's regular weight. Yeah. Yep. So the other stuff is 2 or even 3 times as thick as that. So that was the second shelf, and now we go down to the third shelf. Most of our ponds, I would say 75% of all the ponds that either do-it-yourself ponds or are professionally constructed ponds are in that 24 to 30 inch deep depth. That's plenty deep to fish around here to survive the winter. I have a buddy up in Canada. They get way colder up there. He uses that same rule. So if you've gone down to Lake Redmond, in the middle of the winter, and you're like, Mark, but there's 18 inches of ice on this thing. The warmth from the ground keeps the bottom 2/3 of this pond open. So, so typically, in a super, super cold winter, you could get, 6, 8 inches of ice. But if you're 30 inches deep, this ground temperature down here is 55 degrees or whatever. So that's going to keep that water, unfrozen. The biggest thing in the wintertime is just to make sure that we have the proper depth, through here, and that 24 to 30 is perfectly fine. You can go deeper, so we get calls all the time, super ambitious. Hey, I got a buddy came over with a backhoe, and my pond is 9 feet deep. And it's like, oh boy. And then we start going through everything. It's like, I told you not to dig before we talked. But even in a pond that's 9 feet deep, I would do steps. The problem with a pond that's 9 feet deep is now all of a sudden the skimmer type filtration is not quite enough to handle everything. So we start talking about striations in the water levels. We start talking about aeration systems, things like that. When we dig a pond like Leg Up Farm or down in Bel Air, Maryland, 2 years ago now, we built an acre-sized pond, skimming filtrations, biofalls, etc. But those ponds are 8, 10 feet deep, and we start talking about aeration systems. So we're not going to get into that today. So anywhere between 2 to 4 feet is perfect, and this system will work just fine for. I don't really see a huge need to ever go deeper than 4 feet in a typical backyard pond. We do swim ponds and we do acre-sized lakes, so we go deeper. But that's a different animal. So just keep in mind, 2 to 4 feet is perfect.
Are there
Yep.
legal implications to how deep you go?
Yeah. So when it comes to different townships, they're going to have different rules about what is a pond versus what is a swimming pool versus what kind of fencing do you need to have around it. And we can talk about those on a case-by-case basis. But if you're building a pond that has these steps in it, it's way safer than any kind of swimming pool, situation. And that. But check with your local townships and codes to make sure that you're following those rules. So again, make sure you're following your township rules. Most of the time, that 10 by 10, thing is falling into a landscape category. But it never hurts to call and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. It's better to make sure that you're not getting people riled up about it, and then you're fighting a battle after it's done. Yeah, good. Okay. Any other questions about siting it? Okay. So the excavation gets flipped up, creates the berm for the waterfall. That creates the perfect height for the waterfall through there. I will point out another couple things in the excavation. We talked about plant pockets. We also do fish caves. So heron, bald eagles. If you're here on a Saturday, just look up. Most Saturdays you're going to see the bald eagles fly over our store and hungrily look down at my ponds. I've never had one grab a fish out, but I've been out in the backyard before telling this story about the bald eagles. They live right over there in the sycamore trees on the other side of Route 30, and then they fly right over our store. And the old high school here on the other side of 83, there's some light poles, And so they'll roost up there for the day, and then they say, all right, it's time to go home, and they'll fly right over the store. Well, I was telling the story, and I said, yeah, they fly around all the time. And literally, I went like this to point at the light poles, and the eagle's like 5 feet off my finger. Like literally, it's like we have a cable out there, and it was right below that cable. That's the lowest I've ever seen it. But we put fish caves in, just in case, so if a heron stops by, they have a place to go and kind of hang out and be happy for that period of time, and then it'll come back out. In the wintertime, you'll see, the fish just pack themselves into the fish caves, and they kind of just hang out, and that's a happy place for them. Yeah.
Groundhogs.
So groundhogs, I've seen groundhogs drink out of a pond. I've never seen them do any other damage. Yeah. So yep. There's other there's mink around. Yeah. And if we were to build a zoo habitat for a mink, this is it. They love jumping in the shallow shelf here. They can pick their teeth out, and then they go swim and grab another fish, and then they take the fish out back to their thing. They come back, grab another fish. So there's mink around. There's bald eagles. There's heron. Most of the time, you don't have to worry about the mink. They're transitory. But heron are the biggest thing, and so you'll see throughout the store we have different things to kind of reduce the heron damage. Bald eagles, there's not a whole lot you can do with. A mink, there's not a whole lot you can do with. Just enjoy it. It's nature. It's kind of cool. Sad to see your fish go, but yeah. But if everybody ever sees a bald eagle dive in, make sure you get some pictures and get it up on YouTube. Yeah, it's pretty cool. All right, so that's that. So we talked about filtration. We talked about 90% of filtering, right? So the other 10%, what are we talking about? Part of that other 10% is this biofilter or a bog. Who mentioned about a bog? You mentioned about a bog. A biofilter, a bog filter, and plants. So I'm going to talk about what that role is. Here's the boring science lesson for the whole day. If you have green water in your pond, anybody ever see a pond that had green water in it, right? Pretty much everybody. The reason that you see that green water, it's not actually the water that's green. It's a single-cell algae that's growing in that water. That single-cell algae loves to eat nitrites. Okay, so that's our nemesis here in the pond. It's like we don't want green water. We want crystal clear water. So how do we get rid of those nitrites? If you go to Europe and you see some of these water gardens and these backyards, my wife and I are going to Paris this summer. We're so excited. We're going to see Monet's garden and a whole bunch of different things. But I'm pretty sure I'm going to be disappointed by a lot of the ponds because they're going to be pea soup green. Because a lot of European ponds are pea soup green. The fish are happy and healthy. The plants look okay, but the water's pea soup green. The reason that the fish are happy and healthy is because they have enough biological filtration happening in the pond that they're getting rid of the ammonia. So that keeps the fish happy. But they're stuck. They're growing single-cell algae. So the algae is causing the water to be green. Well, what do we do differently than what they've been doing for hundreds of years over there? And the number one thing that we do is we have big biological filters. Okay, so the biological filter is where the waterfall comes out the front. Here's where our plumbing comes in. I'll lift that up so you guys can see in the back. So the plumbing comes into the back side. And remember we talked about we put dirt around this. So all the dirt from the pond comes up to here. So the plumbing's all buried. So the water comes into this back side over here. And the very first thing in here is open space. I call it the swirl chamber. The water just comes into here. It swirls around. Instead of just shooting right through this waterfall and creating this jet, it just slows down. Yep, exactly. So it hits this front wall. It bounces around, but it just basically slows down. I'm going to tear this apart here just a little bit. Top layer is bio balls. And then we have filter mats. And you can see that in this particular one here, those filter mats sit on top of this post. So this is our swirl chamber. So the water goes into there, it slows down, and then it's going to slowly, evenly go through these filter mats. If these filter mats were right at where the pipe comes in, that's going to just jet right through this stuff, and the water's going to go straight through here and not go through the whole thing. So nooks and crannies is what this is all about. So if you look up top here, we've got green and white and blue and different grades of filter mats. Bacteria don't care what color filter mat that you're using. We want to grow as much bacteria as we can. So this is a good beneficial bacteria that grows on these filter mats. So the water coming into the bottom here has high ammonia in it. There's a beneficial bacteria, and if everybody looks on that shelf right there, the top product right there is called beneficial bacteria. Beneficial bacteria eats up the ammonia, and that's what keeps your fish happy. So if the fish just had no biological filtration in there at all, they wouldn't be happy because they'd be swimming around in their own ammonia, which is not good. So a beneficial bacteria comes in, eats up that ammonia. You know what the byproduct of that process is nitrites. So if the cycle stopped right there, guess what? Your fish are happy and healthy, but your water is going to be pea soup green. The single-cell algae says, hey, if nobody else wants these nitrites, I'll take it and grow and be happy. So European ponds, green water, happy, healthy fish, but it's green water, so how do you see your fish? So us crazy Americans are like, wait a second, I want crystal clear water and happy, healthy fish. So what we do is we make our biological filters bigger so we can grow another type of bacteria in here. So we've got ammonia getting converted into nitrites, and now after the water comes through these filter pads and starts going into our bioballs, these bioballs grow a different type of bacteria that takes those nitrites, eats them up, and converts it into nitrates. So that whole science lesson is ammonia to nitrites to nitrates. So just like we got rid of the ammonia and it's just gone, we get rid of the nitrites so there's none left for single-cell algae. So you can see we do have some algicides and we have some UV sterilizers over here. Notice we didn't talk about algicides or UV sterilizers over here. You don't need algicides and UV sterilizers to get crystal clear water. You just need to grow beneficial bacteria. So if you grow enough beneficial bacteria to get rid of all the ammonia, your fish are going to be super happy. If you grow enough beneficial bacteria, you're going to get rid of the nitrites and your water is going to be crystal clear. So if you go out and see our ponds, they're crystal clear year round, and we don't do anything besides grow beneficial bacteria. So the more beneficial bacteria you can grow, the more ammonia and the more nitrites that you can process.
Is there anything in these bowls?
There's nothing in these. So all it is just a textured plastic, and they're engineered to have as much surface area as possible. So if you were to look at these different filter mats and analyze the surface area, some of those are going to be a little more dense. Some of those are going to grow a little bit more bacteria than others. Our bioballs, we used to sell lava rock. And so if you take a piece of lava rock and do a calculation, I wouldn't want to be that guy, but yeah, exactly, right? And just count the surface area. That tells you how much bacteria that you can grow. But if you take a bioball of the same thing, bioballs are probably 30 times more surface area than a piece of lava rock. And so that's why we sell bioballs today as opposed to lava rock. And we do sell lava rock, but who wants to lug 50-pound pads of a lava rock around? So the bioballs are just a more efficient way to do it. I've seen bio ribbon, I've seen bio blocks, I've seen any kind of industrial waste that has surface area to it. But we sell these filter mats, bioballs, and lava rock. In my personal opinion, these grow more beneficial bacteria than any other pieces of material out there. With one exception, dollar store pot scrubbies. A buddy of mine in England did a study. Yeah, grows more bacteria than any of this stuff combined. Kind of makes you think about doing dishes, right? I don't know. But so the idea here is, right? Yeah, right. They've got surface area, right? But anyway, so we're growing bacteria. So the biofilter is in essence just a house, just a place to grow beneficial bacteria and enzymes. If I were to ask you how often should you clean this, people are like, I don't know, once a week, once a month, once a year at most. If you clean this, what are we doing? We're killing off all the bacteria that's doing the job of cleaning the pond. So we have customers every year come in and they buy our kit, and I take it out, we deliver it, they build this pond, it looks gorgeous. Within like a month, they're like, Mark, the pond is pea soup again. And it's like, what am I doing wrong? And I say, when was the last time you cleaned those filter mats in there? And we don't touch it. I know my husband wouldn't touch it, blah, 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 blah. And then, it's like, all right, that's kind of weird. So I go out, and it looks like it was the day they put it in. So obviously somebody finally fesses up and said, yeah, I've been cleaning it. It looks so disgusting. I have to clean it. Well, what it should look like after a month and during the season, it should have this brown film over all the surface area in here. That brown film is the beneficial bacteria that's doing the job of cleaning the pond. So don't clean this. There are other systems out there that using types of biological filtration, but they're not putting a skimmer on it, and the skimmer is clogging up everything in here, or the debris that should be caught in the skimmer is clogging this up, so you have to clean it. If you have a pressure filter, we sell a lot of pressure filters for small ponds in situations where they really can't get this ecosystem, they have to clean that because that's your physical filter and your biological filter in one. So if you're clogging your biological filter with debris, you got to clean it. But I'm saying don't clean it, but you have to clean it. So the idea here is that we want to separate those two filters. So separate the physical from the biological and never ever clean this. All right, so if you guys are paying attention, you know where we are now. We went ammonia, nitrites, nitrates, right? So good. So the water coming over this waterfall through here is going to create a lot of oxygen. So that's awesome, right? So oxygen is the lifeblood of it. But what do we do with the nitrates? Anybody have a clue? We talked about it a little bit already. Anybody know what this is? Plants. Yeah. So plants. So all of these plants that we talked about that are on these tables here, and hi, Mom. I see you back there. My mom's in charge of all the plants, so she's going to be happy here. So the plants, this is a tray that goes in the top of this, just like that, okay? And so we're going to plant plants right in here. Those plant roots going down in there are going to suck out those nitrates. So if you go to buy fertilizer for your grass, one of those ingredients is nitrates, okay? So those plants in here are going to suck out nitrates. Yep, and they're going to be awesome. So a bog filter, for us, a bog filter is just this same thing, just custom built. So the water's flowing through the bottom, through different surface material, and then plants. If I don't have plants up here, and I've got excess nitrates coming over here, guess what happens? I don't get green water, but I get green, fuzzy, stringy algae. A little bit of that is normal and expected in every pond, that you're going to get this patina, you're going to get this biofilm over everything. But if you have excess stringy, fuzzy type algae, I have a shelf back there that says algicides, kills string algae, I won't let you touch that shelf until we take a visit to the plant tables. Because I want you to get rid of those nitrates and starve the algae instead of killing it. Let's get rid of it by starving it so it never grows in the first place. And so if you look at string algae really doesn't care what type of nitrate it eats. So there's a certain nutrient that produces a red leaf. There's a certain nutrient that produces a round leaf. There's a certain nutrient that produces a triangular shaped leaf. Make sense? So if I have a round shaped leaf, if I have a red leaf and I have a triangle leaf, I'm taking out 3 different types of nitrates. Well, that's 3 less that the string algae can use to grow. So varieties of plants are going to help reduce string algae. And it looks awesome. Who doesn't want a variety of plants? So when you're shopping the plant tables, I would encourage you to just start taking plants off the table and just arranging them, putting them in groups of like 3. Those 3 look awesome together, like a blue rush with like a red leaf cardinal flower. Really cool combination. So 2 different leaf textures, 2 different colors, 2 different heights, 2 different blooms. Look at our tropicals. How many cannas do you have back there? 30,000, something like that. We have a farm in Dallastown where we grow a lot of our plants as well. And how many lotus are out there? I mean, it's a ton, yeah. We're starting to see what's coming back alive this year and that. But varieties. Just different bloom cycles. So something that blooms in May is going to pull out that nutrient in May. But now all of a sudden we need something to pull that nutrient out in August. So we need something that blooms in August. So when you browse our plant tables, you're going to find all of that variety through there. A lily that's down deep is going to be taking out a different nutrient, than the iris, which is up shallow. So that variety is going to be super, super important. One of my favorite plants out here is Sarracenia, or pitcher plant. So pitcher plant is going to take out some very, very unique nutrients that no other plant is going to take out. So having all of that variety looks awesome, but it is the final piece of our filtration puzzle. So the end result is physically filtering the pond is 90% of the filter. 10% is here in your biofalls, and the other 10% is your plants. And let's just sit back, relax, have a cup of coffee, glass of wine, enjoy the ponds. So I went over my time. Nobody fell asleep, so that's good. Were you sleeping? All right, just checking. What questions did I not answer today? There we go. So I'll give a little sales pitch. Thanks. She didn't get paid for this. So if you're thinking about doing a pond yourself, and I had a whole stack of T-shirts to give away today. We're celebrating our 30th year in business for not falling asleep. Oh, sorry. Here's another one for hitting you in the head. There you go. All right. Celebrating our 30th year in business. So here's some shirts. And I got one more. Who wants it? There we go. All right. There we go. All right. Good. All right. So if you're thinking about doing a pond yourself, this is a great place to start. Thank you guys for coming. Spread the word. That if you know anybody that's thinking about doing a pond. My mission is just to share, the way we've been doing it for years, and what works for us. We designed this whole center so that way you can see pond after pond of example of how this stuff is working. So it's not just me just spewing stuff that doesn't work. But come with some pictures of your spot that you have, some measurements of the spot that you're thinking about, and we can sit down one-on-one and kind of sketch it out. We sell our pond kits as a complete box. So if you say, hey, Mark, my pond is going to be 10 by 10, I have a box upstairs that has a skimmer, has a biofalls, has the pump, has the plumbing, has everything that you're going to need to do the ponds. We'll schedule time. I'll pack up the box in my truck. I'll bring it out to you. We'll unpack it together, and then when the shovels come out, I leave. And hopefully I get a cup of coffee before the shovels come out that way. So yeah. So we do that, no charge. Obviously we charge for the kit. Yeah. Yeah. It's a free seminar and a free pond kit today. That was last week. Right? Yeah. Right. But no. So that is our retail service. So we want to be here in today's environment. We're competing against all this online stuff and that type of thing. One of the things that we can do is just provide this hands-on service. And so we want to be with you every step of the way. So after we deliver that kit, I give you my cell phone number and you text me and say, hey, Mark, I got the skimmer in. What do you think? And I'm like, all right, that looks okay. You listen to me. And then the next week you send me, I started to put the liner in. It's like, you were not listening at all. Back to school for you. And we just kind of walk you through it step by step. So I'm available. Anybody here at the store, we have weekly training stuff with the staff, but they've been around ponds forever too. So when you call up and say, hey, that black thingamajig on the back, I broke it. And we'll be like, all right, we'll make fun of you and put your picture on the wall, but come on in, we'll get you a new one. But they're going to know what that thingamajig is, and be able to help you out with it that way. So the do-it-yourself side of things, you can do it. It's physically very difficult. I physically can't do it anymore with my back, but physically you can do it, and I would encourage you to try. If physically you can't do it, or you're like, no, I want this thing done in a week, not in 3 years. We have an insanely talented group of guys that I've been working with for a long, long time. In fact, I think our team the same team has been together for almost 15 years. They're insane. They can do anything. And whether it's a 10 by 10 pond or whether it's acre-sized lakes or whether it's some really cool, funky features that are happening at Memorial Hospital, we have a great team that does it for you. This booklet I put together not only has our calendar of events on the back, but it has all of our pricing. So if you walk out to our garden out here, you're going to see our first pond. We call it our lily pad pond. It's roughly that 100 square foot pond. And for us to install that for you starts about $6,000. If you wanted to buy that kit and do it yourself, you're going to have about $1,000 in the kit, and you're going to have about another, $800-900 in plants, fish, lighting, rocks and gravel, and that type of thing. So you can see you can save a bit of money doing it yourself. But this particular pond here starts about $6,000, and then we have different options with the stream, with lighting. Our big pond out there, I'll jump to the big one. That starts roughly that size starts at about $18,000. The way it sits out there, we're probably about 45,000 with all kinds of different features and things like that. So we put this together just to give everybody a kind of an idea about where budgets could go. My advice, pick your budget and we'll pick the perfect size pond that'll fit in that. Go as big as your space and your budget allows. Yeah.
What size is that pond considered?
So this particular pond here, if you go to the booklet on page 8 and 9, we call that our lotus pond. And so this is a lotus pond with huge boulders. So this particular pond here would be in that 10 to 12,000 range as you see it here. Just because the biggest thing that causes that price to jump from here is just the size of the boulders. We need massive equipment to set those in. Yeah. I didn't really touch on the type of rocks that we use, but if you look at all of our ponds, all of our rocks are kind of rounded. They have a little bit of moss and lichens on them. Couple rules that I have about rocks. One is no limestone. So most of the rock that you're going to dig up around in your yard here is going to have a high limestone content to it. That's going to play havoc with the pH and algae issues and stuff with the pond. The other thing, York County rock, you dig it out of the ground, it's sharp and shaly. Sharp and shaly does not work very well with rubber liner. So we want, I love big rocks, but I love big rocks that are kind of smooth. So the other thing is small rocks that are stacked, the wind blows, the freeze thaw, it starts to move and shift. And if I put a big boulder, that's staying in place. 100 years from now, that big boulder is still going to be where we put it. So I love using big rocks, and I just think it looks cooler. So if I've got a waterfall, that's 24 inches high, and I've got a 30-inch boulder here and a 30-inch boulder here, that water looks like it eroded that one big rock. So it has a little bit more of a natural feel to it that way. So when it comes to rock work, go as big as your back, can withstand. If we're building it, my guys are putting rocks this big in, on the appropriate size ponds, that type of thing. Yes.
So rocks are in addition to
Yes. So,
these prices?
no. So the prices in the book is all the labor, all the blood, sweat, and tears. That for us to build it for you, all the rocks, everything is included in those prices. So.
If the site has to be excavated with a retaining wall or with
Those types of things would be an addition. Yep. These prices in the booklet here, are basically us coming in on a flat level piece of grass and building the pond for you. When we leave at the end of the day or the end of the 2 days or the end of the 3 days, you have a finished pond that you can sit back and enjoy. If there's special situations like hills and bringing dirt in or hauling dirt out, those would be things that we chat about. So, yep. So, yes.
Do you guys also handle the electricity?
Yeah, so electric on these ponds. So it's not a huge amount of electricity that we're using, but we do need to bring electricity out. Our pump cords are 15 to 20 feet long typically. So if there's an outlet within 15 to 20 feet of where we put the skimmer, great. If not, typically if we're installing it for you, our guys are trenching a line, we're throwing the conduit in, and then it's just a quick phone call to our electrician or an electrician that you use just to throw the cable, the line in there and put an outlet in. So usually it's a pretty minor detail after we're done. So.
And they're running all the time?
Yes, yep, exactly. Our filter systems are designed to run 24/7. So 365 if you wanted to run it in the wintertime. Yeah.
Is there a solar option?
Yes and no. I haven't found solar to be super reliable at the flow rates that we want to do. My wife and I have had the opportunity to hop to Africa a few times, and we've done rainwater harvesting systems over there, and we've done plans to do tilapia farms and things like that. The last time we were over there, we were 9 hours from the nearest source of electricity. Solar was our only option. That particular solar system was in that neighborhood of $6,000–7,000. So $6,000–7,000 versus $300 to bring an electrician in to run the line. Solar, yeah, and it's battery banks and all kinds of things. So solar's possible, but it doesn't seem to be the best choice in a lot of situations. So, yes.
Sizing the skimmer,
Yes.
like gallons per hour or?
So every situation is different, and so we look at the physical size of the pond, like how far do I have to pull that debris in, and then we look at the size of the pump to pull that in. The other thing we look at pump sizing is how tall my waterfall is. So if my waterfall is 10 feet tall, I need a different pump than if my waterfall is 2 feet high. And then we also look at the width of the waterfall. You know, so if my waterfall is only a foot wide, yeah, I need a smaller pump than if it's 8 feet wide. Then I need a bigger pump. So there's a lot of factors that go into sizing the pump. Generally, our small skimmer is going to do a pond up to 10 by 10. Our medium skimmer is going to be in that 20 by 20 range. And then my big skimmer, I wouldn't go bigger than like 30 by 40. And if we're bigger than that, then we start doing custom filters. So basically, 100 square foot, 300 to 400 square foot, and up to 500, 600 square foot. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay, cool. Awesome. All right, what other questions?
So leg up's custom built, I assume.
Leg up is custom built. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we their skimmer is 3 10,000 gallon per hour pumps in a wet well that's probably, I don't know, probably 4 rows of chairs by as wide as this. So that's the size of their skimmer. So that biological filter is 30 feet by 50 feet. So it's a huge filter. It's just like this, but it's 30 feet by 50 feet. And if you look at our big pond out here, our big pond has that bog, what I call a bog type filter, where it's a hole 4 feet deep in the ground. It has a swirl chamber, and then it has different gradations of gravel, and then we have plants planted on the very top of it. So same way, we never touch it. It just does its thing. You know, it grows beneficial bacteria and enzymes to colonize and produce crystal clear water and happy, healthy fish. So yeah, makes sense? Cool. All right, what else? How many donuts are left? All right, so everybody has to grab 3 donuts on your way out. So thank you guys very much for coming. I will hang out. Thank you. I will hang out. I will tell you that in the book here, if you go to the back, service at splashsupplyco.com, service at splashsupplyco.com is a great email address if you have a pond and need it serviced, or even if you want to talk about us coming in and doing it for you. The very first thing that I'll ask you is for pictures of the pond. And so a lot of times those conversations start via email, and then we kind of go from there. So thanks, guys, for coming.